Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another FNAF Fazbear Friday FNAF reaction video. We got on tap for today stuff about FNAF VR Help 1 and 2. Also, little disclaimer before we start and everything. How is my audio sound and everything right now? Because I got a brand new microphone. Hello. Hopefully I'm seeing red, so I'm sounding like I'm peeking, but hopefully you stop that now. You stop peeking, microphone. Hopefully the microphone sounds good. Not that I did not like the microphone. I even have the old one. Not that I didn't like the old one before and everything, but I'm like, you know what? Why not upgrade? Why not do a new microphone and everything? So hopefully this new microphone sounds good. And if you didn't even notice the difference, you didn't even know that I'm using a new microphone right now, well, sorry to spoil that to you and everything. But very similar with like the camera and everything. We've had the for people like, stream or like no cameras or anything like that. We started out on streaming with the Logitech C920 USB webcam, and now we have a webcam. It's another USB webcam, but it's a lot clearer image because it's using AI. So it's not like we didn't like the Logitech webcam and everything, but it's like, you know what? Why not upgrade? So yeah, new microphone. So hopefully it sounds good. So yeah, FNAF stuff on tap for today. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and everything. Ring the notification bell, and here we go. FNAF reaction stuff. Here we go. Also, to go to hi. I saw you zone in chat. I'm acknowledging you. I was just going on a little bit of tangent of getting the new microphone and everything. You know how it is. You stream as well. You don't care. All right, let's hop in.
I've been wrong about Help
Also,
Wanted
yes,
2 so
Badger
much
Saturdays
it's
does
crazy.
roll the tongue,
8
but
months ago I made
hey,
a video convinced that I'd
we're being
finally cracked it.
consistent.
And 6
I want to say, now that I'm talking about this, before I even hop in, hold up. Sorry, no, awkward pause in the first 2 seconds, but I'm very curious about something. I want to take a look. Hold on. Because obviously, we've been doing, it feels like we've been doing, FNAF videos and FNAF theory videos for a while now. I'm very curious on something. Hold on. And you stop peeking, microphone. I'm seeing you waveforms. You stop being red. You stop that now. If I go to the archive channel and I go to the FNAF playlist, we have been doing these FNAF theory style videos and everything since June of 2024. So if you do that math, that's what, like 16, 17 months of FNAF theories videos. We've been doing this for a while, which is insane. But also, if we want to go even further, we've been doing the whole consistent FNAF video every Friday or at least once a week and everything. We've been doing that since February. Hold up. Let me pull up. Oh my god, the old streaming setup. Hold on, I have to screenshot this just to show you how crazy this is. My god, the old setup and everything. Man, I'm looking at this now, and we've done quite a few setups in our day. As far as backgrounds, overlays streaming wise, it's crazy. Oops. Sorry, didn't mean to minimize the screen. I'm a terrible streamer. Apologies. All right, back to what we were trying to do. Here we go. Ba, 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 ba. And there we go. Okay. This is almost worth it. Almost done. I hope it's worth it. I hope the wait is worth it. Believe me, I want to see what this video is all about as well. There we go. God, look at that old overlay, old setup we had. And the thing about it is I had this like, you know, rain, like neon red, pink, like neon blue and everything. I had this set up for like 1 or 2 streams, and then I completely got rid of it. Just because like the constant like waveform, like pattern of like the neon and everything was too much like RAM power on like a PC and everything. So it's like, okay, we had to tone it down a little bit and everything. So this is like a 1-2 time thing. But you can see, solving the Shadow Electronics once and for all. Oh, if it's clickbait, because we still haven't done that. February 6th of 2023. That is when we started this whole every week a FNAF video. Since February. So there you go. Hope it's worth it. There's a little history lesson for you. All right. Back to the video. I'm going to start from the beginning because we're not even 5 seconds into it. All right. Here we go. Enough interruptions out the way. The thing that you came for.
I've been wrong about Help Wanted 2 so much it's crazy. 8 months ago I made a video convinced that I'd finally cracked it, and 6 months ago I made a video amending that to where it's still kind of the same thing but with new players involved, including some of the ideas about the chain of mimics, and I still like those ideas and I think they're possible, but after the release of Secret of the Mimic, and in tandem, Mimic Custody, I think a much simpler solution is right in front of us, and it has to do with the ongoing battle over the control of the Mimic between Fiona, or M1, and Glitchtrap, or M3. Slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. Now, I know I just threw a lot of terminology at you, so let me break down some of that theory jargon. Mimic Custody is admittedly a silly name I made up for the theory that I spent the past 2 weeks covering. The idea that the current story of Five Nights at Freddy's is Fiona and Glitchtrap fighting over the control of the Mimic Endoskeleton. Fiona, or M1, wants M2 and the Mimic Endoskeleton to remain intact, because she wants to reset M2 so it can continue to be her son David again. Whereas Glitchtrap wants the body of the Mimic Endoskeleton to enter the real world with, so he wants to wipe M2 from its system. All the while, M2 just wants to be its own thing, so it doesn't want either of them to succeed. So what does that theory have to do with Help Wanted 2? You melting or do you want down? I can't tell if you're like leaned so far off, buddy. Well, Help Wanted 2 is interesting in this context because it is simultaneously the most and least confusing FNAF game that we've ever gotten. On the surface, the main plot of the game isn't that difficult to get to. We're playing as Cassie's dad, trying to figure out what's going on at the Mega Pizzaplex, but in doing so, we're manipulated, tricked, used, and killed. That's all pretty easy assumptions to make based on the evidence we have in front of us. Granted, none of that's confirmed, but that's the part of Help Wanted 2 that pretty much 99% of people agree on. However, no one can seem to agree on the details, the parts in which this game get really weird. Things like, why are we collecting Voltron-style Fazbear toys? And why is it that when we do that, Glitchtrap seems to materialize in the real world? Is any of what we're seeing in this game real at all? Why is Glitchtrap handing us the things that lead to his demise? Why does Vanny kill Glitchtrap? There's never been a super clean explanation for any of this. And even though I've got an idea I'm really confident in, I admit it's not without its holes. Frankly, the last theory I had on Help Wanted, which I was still super confident in, had plenty of holes too. Previously, I thought this game was a fight between Vanny and GGY, the Glitchtrap personas within Vanessa and Gregory respectively. I thought by the time of Help Wanted 2, both of those personas were removed from Vanessa and Gregory, but still existed and were fighting over control of what happens next. I still think that theory has a lot of merit, but in a post-Secret of the Mimic world, I do still think Help Wanted 2 is showing us a battle between two forces.
Okay, sorry. I know that was a lot of video and everything, and I wasn't like pausing, diving into the reaction and everything. I was just letting that video play out and everything because there was just so many thoughts going through my head, just trying to process it all and everything. First of all, trying to remember all that of what happened in Help Wanted 2 and everything, theories coming out and everything, the theory, the assumption that we play as Cassie's dad in FNAF VR Help 1 and 2, who was a Fazbear technician, who used a Faz wrench, which came up very important in FNAF Ruin. That was the whole point of FNAF Ruin, is you using that Faz wrench. And the ending of FNAF VR Help 1 and 2 is, at least one of the endings, presumably the bad ending. Glitchtrap comes out of the birthing pod, the power chamber. A bunch of the Nightmare own in your dream stat bots surround you as a player, kidnap you, and presumably shove you in a staff bot. And from the staff bot point of view, you are handing Cassie, your daughter, the Vanny bunny mask at the beginning of Ruin. And that in turn is the bad ending, because as we know, the Vanny mask is how we believe Cassie to be the new Vanny, the new villain, the new way for Glitchtrap William Afton to take over someone's mind. Got all that? Cool. Because it doesn't matter. Because the reason why it doesn't matter is the whole talk with Vanessa makes, honestly, theorizing, talking about the FNAF lore, timeline, Vanessa as a character, as a whole, is very confusing, and it's also very, very frustrating to talk about. And this is what I mean. We first meet Vanessa in, emails, in the FNAF AR mobile game, FNAF Special Delivery. She is, in and outs with some, red flags with HR and everything, where, she is, how do I put this? One day, she is, typing into like Google, like the, migration of bees or migration of butterflies. But then the very next day, she is typing help, or she's typing, how much can you cut a human before they like lose consciousness? Just typical stuff you search on the day on Google, right? That's totally stuff in my Google search history. Do not find that. Do not leak my Google search history. All right? But you have that introduction. And then all the hype, all the talk with security breach of her being the new villain. The whole game of Help 1 is you collecting the cassette tapes you get throughout the game. I think there's, 16 of them? There are 16 cassette tapes you collect throughout the game and everything. And as you collect more and more tapes in the game and everything, Glitchtrap gets closer and closer to you. And then once you collect all 16 tapes, he is able to possess your body and take over in one of the many ways. Either you play through the game normally and you do that pizza party minigame where it ends by Glitchtrap coming out through the show stage curtain and luring you, a 5 or 6 year old child, into a back room, and then it fades to black, and then next thing you know, you are on stage as one of the animatronics, forcing yourself to perform while you watch Glitchtrap dance away as the credits roll, which is very creepy stuff. And the music makes it even worse, and it's so bizarre. And there's another way where Glitchtrap just outright possesses your body, where your consciousness gets like transferred, where you go from looking up at the stage, looking up at Glitchtrap, to now you're mind swapped, mind transferred, where now you are on stage and now you are looking down on your former body, now being in the mind possessed by Glitchtrap. And then another way, at the final ending, we're getting to the end of it, the final third ending of Help 1 is you are locked away in some like chamber, some bunker and you see a bunch of like scratch and sludgel claw marks, basically giving off the impression that this is not the first time that humans have been locked away in this bunker and everything. So once you open up the lock and everything, you see Glitchtrap's face appear and everything, and he tells you to whisper, like, to shush and everything, and then he goes off in the darkness, and you are locked away in this bunker, never to be seen again. The reason why I bring up all those 3 endings is every single one of them is a bad ending, and they all have the same idea, is you getting either killed and or Glitchtrap taking over your body. The whole point of the game is that. And the whole point of the game and everything is, you know, this cassette tape going and everything, the person that you're listening to without the game and everything, who you trust because you hear throughout the game and everything, they are also taken over by Glitchtrap. They are also mind swap transferred with Glitchtrap and everything. They are now unreliable. So, that all being said, I know it's a lot. And then you get to Security Breach. There's hype. All the marketing has Vanessa as a new villain. They're in all the teaser images, all the teaser trailers, all the stuff and everything. Game comes out. Now, say whatever you want about the game we were supposed to get, the game we were promised, the game that was teased in the trailer versus the game we actually got and everything, stuff being cut, delays. Say whatever you want. But the reality is, Vanessa was not in the game at all. They were not important. The corpse of Burn Trap underneath the FNAF 6 pizzeria was more important and got more screen time than Vanessa, who was supposed to be the new villain of the series. And then DLC comes out, and you enter story, and now it's this new person taking up the role. So that all being said, what I'm trying to get at is Vanessa is the linchpin. Vanessa is the difficult point in the series to talk about because, I mean, I'm just saying as it is, I highly doubt that when Scott and Steel Wool came together and made the Vanessa character to be possessed by Glitchtrap, to be under the Glitchtrap cult, to be Vanny, to be Tape Girl from FNAF VR Help 1-in-1, I highly doubt they had this character in mind when they first made her, and then immediately end her story just like that. I highly doubt that. I think there was several games where we're supposed to get about Vanessa's story and everything, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We have to get what we get, and unfortunately, Vanessa is a difficult point to talk about because you're like, well, this is what we are promised, this is what we are setting up for Vanessa to be this big character, but this is what actually happened.
I just think the players have changed. But honestly, could you blame me? Until Secret of the Mimic came out, I didn't even think Fiona was going to be relevant in Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, she's barely relevant in the story of the Mimic, so I think that's fair. I think, instead, Help Wanted 2 is showing us a possible climax to the battle between Fiona, or M1, and Glitchtrap, or M3, over the body of M2, the Mimic endoskeleton they're both trying to get their hands on. So who's on what side, and what ultimately happens during this game? Well, there's 2 endings. In one of them, Glitchtrap is seemingly crushed and destroyed forever, and in the other ending, Glitchtrap is seemingly materializing in the real world. So if Glitchtrap is behind one of the endings, I'm gonna go with the one where he lives, which frankly is the easier ending of the 2 to explain. Man, these slimes are not difficult yet, but I wish there was...
Sorry, not Spawn.
What I needed. Handing the Vanny mask to Cassie. So what's going on here? Is Glitchtrap literally materializing in the real world? I don't think so. I think this is a metaphor for Glitchtrap entering the Vanny mask, likely the one we're currently wearing. Essentially, we're wearing the Vanny mask, Glitchtrap enters it and then has us killed, so then we can take this mask and give it to someone to infect. But if that's the case, how did this come?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we know Glitchtrap can possess masks. Like, in the very beginning, Help Wanted 1, Jeremy, one of the first playtesters, before Vanessa even becomes a character yet, Jeremy is a previous playtester for Fazbear Entertainment, trying to test out this game and everything. Because once again, need to remind you several times again, but I'm going to bring it up again. So you're talking about Help Wanted, the VR games. They are VR games in universe. They're not just VR games like here in the real world, like right now. Hi. They're actually VR games in universe that were made to address the skeletons of the closet, Fazbear Entertainment poking fun at themselves, and poke themselves as a family-friendly brand again, as we all know Fazbear Entertainment is always to be that. So it's a VR game in universe. Jeremy here is a playtester working on Fazbear Entertainment's game and everything. While he's testing the game and everything, he sees this weird green glitching bunny character that is getting closer and closer to him, which is very, very bizarre. And he gets a little bit freaked out about it. And the more he playtests the game and everything, the closer and closer the glitching bunny Glitchtrap is getting. And it gets to a point where Jeremy is so freaked out that Glitchtrap seems to be coming closer and closer and closer to him. And not only that, but the only ways he's seeing this bunny character is when he puts on the VR mask. He can't take it anymore. So what he does, the totally sane reaction, is he goes to the guillotine paper shredder and slices his face off. And then Vanessa comes into work one day and she sees Jeremy's face, sees Jeremy's mask on the floor with ink. Do I need to say more in what that really is? So, it's not the first time that Glitchtrap can possess masks and everything. Another thing that I just thought of while I was talking about all that as Glitchtrap was getting closer and closer, going off Jeremy's story and everything, that reminds me of one of the books. I can't remember exactly what book it was, as always, because there's so many of them. But in one of the Fazbear Frights books, there's a story of a girl putting on one of those Google VR, cardboard cutout VR masks. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but as she puts it on, she sees below her from Sister Location at least a digital hologram version of it. But then she, puts the glasses off. She flips off the VR headset, but then she doesn't see below her at all. But then she puts it back on, and then it seems like below her is getting a little bit closer. And not only that, but, as we know, below her is a ballerina, dancer, and everything like that. And as she's spinning, it seems like the next time the girl flips up the mask and everything, takes it off and everything, she starts to see, the wind blowing. And she starts to see leaves twirling in the wind in the same direction, the same spinning motion as Belor was. And they're like, wait, each time we put the mask down, we see Belor getting closer and closer, but then we flip it up and we don't see anything. Is she real? Is she not? I just want to point that out and everything. As I was talking about the whole Jeremy thing, Glitchtrap getting closer and closer, here's another example of the series of a character getting closer and closer as they put on a mask. And yo, Shark, what's up? And first of all, how you doing? Second of all, happy birthday. And third, hey, you're here for a FNAF video, W. A couple things I want to address before I dive into everything. New microphone. Probably doesn't sound good me holding up like that. But how does the microphone sound and everything? It's new and everything. Also, I believe this is the first time that you are in one of my FNAF videos. So, what do you think about the overlay FNAF style theme and everything? Anyway, back to the video.
About. How did he manage to enter that mask? Well, that comes down to how we access this ending, which is just playing the game normally. We listen to the projector helpy and we do the task presented in front of us, and occasionally we're presented a present, each one being a different Phaz Force figure, those Voltron-like action figures I mentioned at the beginning of the video. When we collect all 6, the main 4 Freddy's gang, Golden Freddy / Fredbear, and the puppet, we get one more present. The combined figure, because all of them can combine into this creature, which, yes, I think deserves to be talked about why it looks so similar to that costume the Mimic put on, but I don't have time to get into that today. But once we do that, we hard cut to the ending, the thing I just mentioned. Glitchtrap appears, we get killed, we see Cassie being handed the mask. This all seems fairly self-explanatory even without Secret of the Mimic. I don't think I'm breaking any ground here with this analysis. This version of Helpy is likely Glitchtrap, and it's stringing us along saying, if you listen to us, you'll be able to fix everything, but in listening to it, we're putting him back together.
100%. That's Glitchtrap. Hold on. Let me show off this evil figure. Yeah, that guy. Hey, hi, new employee. Yeah, Helpy. I do not trust you. You're amazing when you first appeared in FNAF 6, when you were in the little figurine in the bottom right corner of the game and everything, when you're in the buying section where you're buying stuff for your pizzeria. You're cute, you're awesome. And you also had a Mimi jump scare in Ultimate Custom Night. But now, you're appearing in FNAF VR Help On 2. And you're also appearing in FNAF Ruin. In fact, you're very, very important in FNAF Ruin. You're starting to appear in a lot. Yeah, and you also were the helper character in Secret of the Mimic. I don't trust Helpy. I don't know if I'm the only one, but just saying, I don't trust him anymore. And yeah, 100%, that is also Glitchtrap. Because if I'm not mistaken, in FNAF VR Help Wanted 2, throughout the game and everything, you see the Helpy character. Right, on the screen right here. Doing this interactive stuff. Hey, hi, new employee, that stuff. But then if I'm not mistaken, it's either once you collect all the Fazbear Power Ranger figurines, he disappears, or is it when you get the ending when you collect the Faz Wrench, go into Princess Quest 4, and you hand off the Glitchtrap to the giant Vanny figurine and then crush it. And that is when Helpy disappears. I cannot remember which one it was, but I do know that's a thing. You see Helpy throughout the game and everything, but then you get some ending, you do something, and then he disappears. That cannot be a coincidence.
This version of Helpy is likely Glitchtrap, and it's stringing us along saying, if you listen to us, you'll be able to fix everything, but in listening to it, we're putting him back together. Just like in Help Wanted 1, Glitchtrap apparently needs to be gathered before he can materialize, and that's what we're doing here. We're putting him back together so he can materialize into the mask. Even with Secret of the...
All the pieces are in place for us, we just have to put it back together. Thanks, FNAF World.
The Mimic in mind. Glitchtrap being a variant of the Mimic doesn't really change any of this analysis. He still needs a body to get to the desired Mimic endoskeleton. So if this is all mostly the same with or without Secret of the Mimic, why am I making this video? Well, that comes down to the second ending, the weird one. In the other ending, we listen to a different voice, collect poppets, go to Princess Quest 4, and watch Vanny kill Glitchtrap in front of us. That's wild. This is an insane ending. However, taking it as a whole, if this ending is destroying Glitchtrap, and we know there's two major players going on, then it seems most likely that this ending is being controlled or manipulated by Fiona, or M1. And although on the surface that seems fairly straightforward, this is the ending that always stumps theories a little bit, and frankly it does to this theory too. While the idea of Fiona trying to destroy Glitchtrap makes sense, how does Vanny get involved in any of it? Well, at least the process of getting this ending, I think, is incredibly clear in a post-Secret of the Mimic world.
If Fiona is the one setting up that ending, that minigame, does that then mean Old Man Consequence is the thing we trade the Bonnie mask for Glitchtrap? Does that mean Old Man Consequence is... That theory is correct, which we did before, a previous theory. Does it mean Old Man Consequences is Edwin? Another time where we believed it to be Henry, turns out to be Edwin the entire time.
The key to understanding this is how you access the secret ending in Help Wanted 2. The fact that you have to follow the vague hints to do secrets in the minigames. The interesting part of that being how those hints are delivered to the player. The first time you play a minigame that has a secret in it, Mystic Hippo tells you that you've received a message. The message being graffiti near one of the spots in the pizzeria. Mystic Hippo is a strange character, one that we meet for the first time in this game, and she is an absolute diva. But all of the secret advice comes from her. So throughout the game, a stationary voice is giving advice to us on how to access one of the endings. How interesting is it then that the very next game has M1 pretending to be Dispatch, a stationary voice giving us directions on how to access an ending. Now, just that connection would be too loose for a theory, but it doesn't stop there. Consider the Help Wanted 2 pizzeria. Everything inside of it is Fazbear merchandise. Frankly, most of it is stuff we've seen before, but now in 3D. We get these posters of things we've seen before, toys we've seen before. I mean, they even have both of the drink clowns. But then we have Mystic Hippo, something we've never seen before that frankly might not even be a Fazbear character.
Unless Mr. Hippo was out in the park one day and, you know, he also saw Mystic Hippo, and Mr. Hippo talked about his infamous stories about, you know, feeding bread to the ducks and everything, was able to, I don't know how to say this in the most PG way possible, because not RedTube, get with Mystic Hippo. I think that's the best way to put it. Because, hey, Mr. Hippo, he's got aura.
She's a lot closer to Mr. Hippo from the Mediocre Melodies, which aren't Fazbear characters. And maybe she was a part of Fall Fest, after all she's next to the carousel and she fits the theming, but even still, to us, she's a brand new character. But not only is she this older new character we hadn't heard of, Secret of the Mimic tells us that Mystic Hippo is a Murray's Costume Manor original. We have this poster in the back of the Big Top showroom, one of Mystic Hippo, an area that's lacking any Fazbear branding. This is showing us that Mystic Hippo was a Murray's Costume Manor original character, and knowing the workflow of MCM, that would have likely meant that she was designed originally by Fiona. So now looking at this Help Wanted 2 ending, we get access to it by listening to a Fiona-designed Murray's Costume Manor character who's giving us hints in a similar fashion to how M1 does in Secret of the Mimic. And if we...
The cruel thing, I will say this, the cruel thing that, at least in my experience, that FNAF and also at a lesser token Steel Wool, because now they're the head guys making FNAF stuff now, and we have to listen to them. For better or for worse. No, I'm kidding. I think Steel Wool, after Ruin DLC, the Help Wanted games, and Secret of the Mimic, they have learned from their mistakes in Secret of Breach, so I will applaud them for that. But no, what I'm saying is, the thing that's cruel about FNAF is people like me who dive into every single Easter egg, every single corner of the game, everything, trying to say, oh, is that important? Oh, what does that mean for the lore? Oh, how does that fit in the timeline? Like, for instance, a thing that I go back to more times than ever is the big Rockstar Row section in Security Breach, where you have like you see like the FNAF 1, FNAF 2 posters hanging on the wall. You see the phone from the bedroom of FNAF 4. You see like you know, corn maze, you know, cardboard cutouts of like Nightmare Balloon Boy, Nightmare Plush Trap, from the FOTC, Nightmare FOTC, minigame of the corn maze from the Halloween DLC of VR Help Wanted. And there's a bunch more that is just in that room there, but you get my point and everything. There's a bunch of like stuff Fazbear related in rooms, and is it important? Is it part of the lore and everything? Like, why is this stuff from, you know, the FNAF VR Halloween DLC in Rockstar Row and Security Breach? Is that important, or is it just like, that's cool, or it's just a conglomeration of all the stuff that's popular in the series the last like 10, 11 years, so we just want to throw it in there just to add some life to it? It's nothing important, because like Mr. Hippo once said, you know, sometimes a story just a story. You try to find meaning into every detail. Just drive yourself crazy. Had a friend do it once. Wasn't pretty. We talked about it for years. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Hippo.
Listen to it, it destroys Glitch Trap. The idea that Fiona is speaking to the player through Mystic Hippo is so direct, it's basically not even an implication anymore. But then, if Fiona is the one giving us these instructions, why is it that Glitch Trap is the one who hands us the poppets when we complete a secret? So, admittedly, this stumped me for a while. I've heard plenty of explanations on why Glitch Trap is handing us these plushies. One of them being that it wasn't originally intended, that the original game had Vanny handing it to us and it was changed. But if it was changed, then it was changed and we need to address that. Now, there hasn't been any new evidence or new discoveries that prove what I'm about to say is true, but I have settled on, I think, pretty sound logic in my interpretation of Help Wanted 2.
I mean, truthfully, if Vanny was the one handing us the plushies, would that really change anything? To me, no. I mean, unless I'm completely missing something, and if I am, you know, call me an idiot. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing something. But I don't think that would have changed anything. Like, oh, I have this one interpretation. I view it one way. If Vanny's the one coming out and handing us the plushies of the ghost spirits, versus if Glitch Trap does it, it means this. Doesn't really mean anything, especially once you collect all the plushies, it leads to you seeing Vanny anyways. I don't know.
We know that collecting these poppets, whatever they really are, allow us to destroy Glitch Trap, and we know that they exist in this space, so whatever they are, Glitch Trap would likely know about them too. And if he did, I think it would make a lot of sense if he's the one who hid them in the first place. This kind of goes into what I think Help Wanted 2 actually is in the timeline. Are we literally doing all of these tasks, or are we simply going through a computer and reviewing security logs? Well, personally, I think it's a bit of a blend of both, but the gameplay itself of Help Wanted 2 I think is much more literal than I've been giving it credit for. In Help Wanted 2, we are standing in front of a console wearing a Vanny AR mask, and we're accessing files on that console. Is it not possible that that's literally all we're doing? We're standing at this console, we activate a file, and our AR mask changes the world around us so we can interact within that file. Essentially going through the cyberspace of the Pizzaplex to rout out whatever virus is ruining it. All of these minigames could be exactly that, representations of files we're going through in this Pizzaplex. And if that's true, the poppets have a very clear explanation to what they are now. Glitch Trap took his vulnerabilities, these poppets, regardless of whatever they literally are, they represent his vulnerabilities, and he took them and hid them as deep in the coding of the Pizzaplex as possible, in obscure locations that only he would know how to figure out. So when we access these poppets, we're accessing something that Glitch Trap purposely hid. It's his program. So when we retrieve it, the hand that gives it to us is Glitchtrap. Am I saying that Glitchtrap himself is handing these to us? No. But I think the program he created is him holding on to them. So whether literally or metaphorically or visually analog-wise, we are seeing Glitchtrap's hand holding the plushie, because he's the one holding it there in the first place. Is there any direct evidence to tell us this is the case? Of course not. Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's. But I do think logically this makes a lot of sense. So if that's the case, how does Vanny get into all of this?
That is a huge question. And honestly, sorry. I'm just trying to dwell on that for a second as well. Glitchtrap is the one hiding the plushies. Obviously, the plushies are tied to the ghost spirits of the missing children's incident victims. At least that has always been my interpretation. Like, for instance, when you collect the Bonnie plushie, you get an achievement that says "Remember Jeremy," and in FNAF 6, one of in the gravesite, one of the gravestones says Jeremy, and if you cross-reference that image of the gravesite with the mask laying out in the ending of FNAF 3, you see, oh, that lines up perfectly with Bonnie. So a Bonnie mask linked to the name Jeremy. Here's this now Bonnie plushie that you collect. Oh, Jeremy. Wink, wink, nudge theories, right? Like, that has always been my interpretation. Vulnerabilities is interesting if it's his victims, because I'm being honest, for all the victims that William Afton, I say William Afton because obviously William Afton, whether Glitchtrap is William Afton himself, a virus, mimicking William Afton, whatever it is, it was made in the likeness of William Afton, inspired by, at the very minimum. And what we know about William Afton, I would not immediately think that the missing children's incident victims is his insecurity. I just wouldn't. I would think instead, Cassidy, the vengeful spirit, the one where William Afton is way more brutal than the others. Cassidy, the vengeful spirit, the one who is clinging on to William Afton's soul, not allowing him to die, giving him that eternal punishment in hell and ultimate custom night. I would say that is an insecurity of his. I also would say that maybe even Charlotte is tied to that insecurity as well, because it was a personal stake, because it was Henry's daughter, William Afton's business partner. And we assume maybe that was William Afton's first victim. But the missing children's incident, I don't go to any security, so interesting to think about it. Huh.
This is admittedly the weaker part of the theory I talked about earlier. Vanny being here is so strange, and we still have absolutely no evidence as to why she's involved in killing Glitchtrap if she's supposed to be the reluctant follower. Now, there is the whole concept that is introduced in The Flesh, where iterations of a program would kill older versions of them. But like, if that was something Vanny always wanted to do, why didn't she do it until now? That's the weird bit. So, like always, when we have no evidence here, we have to do some assuming. And I would hate to make an ass out of you and Ming, but we kind of have to here. The timeline placement of Help Wanted 2 is a little tricky, considering all the different spots of the timeline we see within the minigames. But taking our previous interpretation of Help Wanted 2 again...
To me, before I move on, I would say, if you had to ask me, it takes place... Is it safe to say that it takes place in between Security Breach and Ruin DLC. You obviously have the FNAF 6 burned pizzeria in both Security Breach, and when you take off the Vanny mask in the player in FNAF VR Help 1 and 2, you see the same burned down pizzeria. But, you know, that's just like basic stuff. What really points to me between Security Breach and Ruin is the Rotzi makeup minigame. Rotzi is a normal figurine, normal looking character, normal animatronic in Security Breach. But then when Gregory uses a go-kart and gouges her eyes out, she's obviously blind now. And that's how we see her in the makeup minigame. But the makeup minigame ends by you putting on this mask over her eyes and everything. The same mask that you see in FNAF Ruin. Originally, what we saw was the mask from Rotzi and FNAF Ruin. We thought it was just a cool design, cool looking mask and everything. But no, it actually was how the Rotzi minigame ended, was her putting on that mask.
The idea that we're just going through this monitor, then it seems fairly obvious that this game takes place after Security Breach, but before Ruin.
Yeah.
And I still think Ruin is telling us that the canon ending of Security Breach is the Princess Quest Good Vanny ending.
It has to be. It has to be. The only, this is the thing. It has to be the Princess Quest minigame. Not only in FNAF Ruin, the only comic strip drawing that you do not collect in Ruin is the Princess Quest game. That's number one. 2, it's the only 3-star ending in Security Breach. 3, as we know how Princess Quest games work, you have to beat the preceding one in order to go on the next one. You can't play Princess Quest 2 until you beat 1. You can't play 3 until you beat 2. Well, in this game, FNAF VR Help 1 and 2, there's Princess Quest 4. The only way you would be able to play Princess Quest 4 and get to that arcade minigame and hand Glitch Tribe over to Vanessa who gets crushed and everything, you light off the gravestones and everything. The only way you would get that at all is you play and beat Princess Quest 3. How you get Princess Quest 3 is you do the Princess Quest minigame from Security Breach. Because otherwise, then outright we ignore Princess Quest 4 and everything. We ignore pretty much the entire game of FNAF VR Help 1 and 2. If Princess Quest is not the canon ending then.
After all, in that ending, Freddy is beaten to a pulp and his head is removed because it's still functional, the Princess Quest arcade machine is beaten, and Freddy's head, Gregory, and Vanessa all leave the Pizzaplex safely. And then we get to Ruin, where Freddy's body is beaten and headless in the same spot it was left. The Princess Quest arcade machine is toppled over with a digital sword in it, showing that it's been beaten, and Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head are nowhere to be found within the Pizzaplex. This seems very clear to me, but it also seems that Gregory and Vanessa have been busy at work, still trying to take down Glitchtrap and save everybody. If the walkie-talkie conversation we get near the end of Ruin is actually Gregory talking to us, then that would mean that Gregory knows what's going on and knows the cave layout, likely because him, Vanessa, and Freddy's head are still actively trying to stop Glitchtrap from taking over the Pizzaplex and killing a bunch of kids. All this to say, I think that after Security Breach...
I mean, Gregory does say that someone has a layout and map of the place and everything, and we don't know who that friend is. We just assumed when the game came out, the friend was referring to Vanessa, the security guard.
It's likely that Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head escaped the Pizzaplex, but are still working to stop Glitchtrap. It's in character for what we hear them say in-game, and it makes a lot of sense if they're still working toward that goal by Ruin. So during Help Wanted 2, they would likely be working towards that goal. So if Fiona was able to get into contact with Vanessa, then the Help Wanted 2 secret ending makes a lot more sense. But in order for that to make sense, we need to make two very big assumptions, which is the weaker part of this theory. I think that William Afton ran a lot of tests on M1 and M2 throughout the years after obtaining them through buying Murray's Costume Manor. And to do that, he moved them to the sister location bunker to better control their variables. Let's look at the underground layout of MCM. We have research and development directly connected via tunnel to the underground labs beneath the Murray's mansion. Knowing that Afton
The FNAF burger theory is very possible that's what you're referring to. Wait, what theory? Let me know. I'm sure you're right about it. I just need more context.
Takes over all of this post-Edwin, I think it's incredibly likely that Afton renovated these spaces to become the FNAF 4 house overtop the sister location bunker connected to the R&D facility, which later down the line becomes the pizzeria simulator. I think it becomes FNAF 4 in between that, but we won't get into that right now. But regardless, it doesn't take a huge leap to assume that all of this is connected. So, the big assumption...
If you're going down that route, I'm just going down the timeline from what I remember. FNAF 4 is connected to sister location because we, in the Funtime Freddy minigame, are powering up observation rooms to the FNAF 4 house. And in the Night 5 Enter Boss Fight room, you type in 1983 in the keypad, and the cameras go from pixelated to clear, showing off the FNAF 4 bedroom. So very clearly, FNAF 4 and the sister location bunker are connected. This also was a time in the original trilogy of books where this is the first time where stuff has been built on top of each other. That was a big part in the books in the original trilogy. So that's another point for that theory. But then you have FNAF 6, Security Breach, Ruin, Help Wanted 2, all connected because they all go to the one core location, which is the FNAF 6 bunker. So that's fun. So you have FNAF 6 location, Security Breach, Ruin, DLC, both of them. The base game and the Ruin DLC. And VR Help 1 and 2 in one corner. Then you have sister location and FNAF 4 in another corner, all connected with each other. That doesn't make it confusing. And hold on now, let's make it even more confusing. We believe the sister location scooping room that we get lured and tricked into just playing through the game normally at Night 5 in sister location could have been either the same or at least an early version of the same scooper you see in the secret scooping room at the end of Ruin. So that would mean Ruin DLC, the Pizza Plets, and sister location are linked. That would then mean, by proxy, FNAF 4 is also linked to the Pizza Plets, FNAF 4, sister location, and all that. Where all or most of the play locations are pretty much in the same place. Yeah, because that doesn't get complicated.
Isn't that Afton renovated these spaces. The first assumption is that William Afton moved the F10N4 device into the sister location bunker. Physically he could have, but it's still an assumption we have no evidence for. But if he did that, that sets up the second half of this theory. The other big assumption you have to make, that after the events of Security Breach, Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's Head, in trying to stop Glitchtrap for good, found...
What do I do with bits? Hey, W. No, you don't have to, cheer me or buy me bits or whatever, but hey, I appreciate your support and appreciate you being here at all.
the old FNAF 4 house and went down into the sister location bunker. On the surface, this is an insane idea, but luckily with some evidence that have come out, this isn't as big of an assumption to make anymore. This photo can be found around the secret ending of Secret of the Mimic, the one where you revert M2 back into David, and it's a photo of the Mimic and David sitting on a hill looking at the factory. Now, many people have made this connection. In fact, on stream, Tedra's pointed this out to me, that this photo we can find the location of. Looking at the Murray's Costume Manor from the parking lot, you can see that there's a tree next to it. But if you go out of bounds and put the camera behind the tree facing the factory, it's the exact same angle. This tree on a hill is where the Mimic and David were sitting looking at the factory. Now here's where it gets funky. If we take the Brazil ending, or frankly any of the security breach endings,
no. Don't tell me this. Well, okay. I'm gonna let this idea play out first thing before I talk about it, because I have some words about the Brazil ending, where you put the mask on during the chase scene in the end of Ruin. I have some words.
Featuring this tree and line up these photos and locations. This spot that many security breach endings feature is the same tree on the same hill.
That is cool. However, I have a few issues with it. Yes, that's a cool detail, and I don't know if that's like stretching the imagination or it's like, I don't know if that's like, if you squint at it or, you're kind of stretching the point of imagination, but then again, think about what Sirius is talking about here. Also, shout out to you for the bit. Appreciate it. But my issue with the whole Brazil ending of putting the mask on and everything is this image is fake. Right? Hold on. If I go to you would think I would already have this image just like saved and everything, but unfortunately I don't. Because of how popular it is. So that's my bad. Okay, there we go. Let me get it big just so we can compare the two. All right, there we go. And let me ask you a question. Should I get help on 1 or 2? I would say my follow-up question is, do you have a VR headset or are you planning on doing the console port? But look at this image. So the top one is what we talked about before of how it's the Princess Quest ending, the 3-star ending from Security Breach. It's Gregory and the head of Freddy and Vanessa all sit on the hilltop and everything. And we assume this to be the same hilltop from the Lore Keeper ending of FNAF 6, where you see the hilltop and everything, you see the gravesite, and you see the gravestones of the missing children's incident victims of Gabriel being Freddy, Jeremy being Bonnie, Susie being Chica, Cassie being Golden Freddy, Charlie Charlotte being the puppet off on the corner and everything, right? We assume that's where they are. No, I don't have VR. Okay, so console port. I would say just from playing wise, I unfortunately haven't played much of either myself and everything. And let me know if I should do just a stream of the FNAF VR games. I've always thought about doing it. So let me know if I should do another FNAF playthrough, another game like that. Because, yeah, very curious on what it's like and everything. But I would say, for your purposes, just to get back to you and everything, I would say FNAF VR Help Wanted 2, I would say. Because of the stuff talking about Cassie's dad tying to the Mimic and everything, and how the Mimic seems to be the next, like, big thing when it comes to the FNAF story and timeline. FNAF VR Help 1 and 2 links to that, at least a lot more better, a lot more cleanly than FNAF VR Help 1 and 1. Like, the only connection with the Mimic and FNAF VR Help 1 and 1 is Glitch Trap might be in the Mimic. Maybe that's it. But in FNAF VR Help 1 and 2, you know, we play as Cassie's dad. Helpy on the screen, everything is believed to be part of the Mimic network. Maybe Glitch Trap himself. You end the game by being shoved into a stat bot by the Nightmare stat bots with the Nightmare own shadow faces. And then you end the game by handing the Vanny mask to Cassie at the beginning of Ruin. And we obviously know Ruin ends by you interacting with the Mimic. So I would say that's my recommendation. But getting back to this with the picture and everything of the gravesite on the hilltop, you can see the image is very different. The top one is the real image, what we actually get. The bottom one is during the chase scene with the Mimic at the end of Ruin. You go up to a cardboard cutout of Freddy from Fredbear's Family Diner era, holding an ice cream cone. And then you put the mask on and you get taken to this image. And you see Vanessa is now sitting back against the tree and everything. And now Gregory and Helpy, not Freddy, Helpy, are now facing you, the player, and waving at you. And then the balloons as well, which, yeah, the balloons are very significant because if you can notice, I know it's very hard to see. Hold on. Should I pull up this image as well? Ah, screw it. Yeah, there we go. I was hoping that the image wasn't like 200p and like very small and pixelated. Okay. So this is a very zoomed in picture, but that's actually perfect because that actually gets the point across way better. Okay, so if I pull up this. The stream's getting very cluttered, so apologies on that. But, okay. So, apologies on it being very cluttered. Okay. So, I brought the image very big and everything on purpose. Because, yeah, you are right. And that was actually going to be the next point. Is, yeah, the balloons are very, very significant. Because, look at what is behind... I'm sorry, you can't see my mouse or anything, but look what is behind the blue and purple balloons. What's behind that? You see the shadow, right? You see the shadow behind the blue and purple balloons? That's very bizarre, isn't it? Because I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to touch grass or go outside with a balloon and, let go of the string and everything and watch it go up in the sky and everything. But I don't believe you release something in the sky and there's a giant shadow behind something. Right? There's not a giant shadow behind something in the sky. It's just off on its own. Meaning, this ain't the sky or anything. It's a backdrop. The shadow is from lights pointing at a backdrop. It's like a stage. And yeah, there are shadows behind the green and yellow ones, right? You are right about that. I was just calling out the blue one in particular because of how obvious the shadow is compared to the green and yellow. But yes, you are right about that. But yeah, I don't know if you had the opportunity to touch grass or anything, but yeah, you release something in the sky, you don't see shadows behind something. You just see it off on its own. Do you let a balloon go in the sky or anything? You're not going to see a giant shadow behind it. But if you're in front of a stage with a bunch of lights shining, you will 100% see a shadow behind something. Like, if I had a bunch of lights pointing in my direction, there would be a giant shadow, like, on the wall and everything. Because there's a bunch of light coming towards me and everything. There would be a bunch of shadows. Very similarly, there's a bunch of lights protruding onto balloons and everything, and that's what's causing this shadow on, not the sky, a backdrop. So yeah, so I want to call attention to that. So this image is not only not the same as the Princess Quest ending, even though it's posing to be like that, it's not the same as the Princess Quest ending from Base Security Breach, but also balloons having shadows in the sky. That doesn't sound right. And also, if you remember from the dialogue as well, Gregory changes tone saying, oh, I found a place to hide and everything, I'm totally safe. And the game just ends. Just saying. So I'll leave y'all with that. I just realized your bots is FNAF cam. That's cool. Yeah. And I'm not ending the stream yet, but I do want to show this. The starting soon screen. And the ending stream. Once again, I'm not ending yet. Not yet. There we go. FNAF 2. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Including the Good Vanny ending, where Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head are resting after escaping the Pizzaplex and being free of Glitchtrap's control. This piece of evidence has been used in a lot of different ways. I know it's one of the key parts of God David, but in this theory, this photograph is showing us that if the Good Vanny ending is canon, then when they escape, the first place they go to relax is sitting directly next to the old FNAF 4 house. This house and tree that was Murray's costume manor but was converted into the FNAF 4 house is right next to the Pizzaplex. And
so Murray's house is converted to the FNAF 4 house. Huh. So, that... Whew. That's tough. Also addressing that as well. Who's better, Rytos or John? I would say I like them both equally, but for different ways. This is going to sound like a huge cop-out answer, but I will elaborate on it further. I like Rytos more for the FNAF theories, and that's why I relate to him a lot more personally. But as far as like the actual like FNAF gameplays, like, you know, watching one of them play like FNAF, like for instance, watching them play Secret of the Mimic, I watched John FNAF's playthrough more. I hope I elaborate, but I know that's going to sound like a huge cop out. Like, oh, I like both of them, but yeah, I like both of them for either ways. Rytos for the theories, John for the playthroughs. Not to say Rytos doesn't do good playthroughs and vice versa, John doesn't do good theories. It's just, I think there's something about Rytos theories that it makes you think about a lot more, as we see right now talking about the FNAF 4 house and everything. It just makes you think about stuff a lot more, and I don't know, I feel like it challenges the boundaries of what's possible in FNAF. Everything challenges what we really knew about FNAF and everything. Not to say John's not a good FNAF theorist, and he's great in his own right. I just feel like it's going to sound bad. It's going to sound like a shot and everything. I'm not trying to say this because I like him and everything, even though I never met him, but I would like to meet him one day. But my issue with John is well, it's going to sound like a shot, and I promise you it's not. I promise. But I feel like there's a fine gray area, fine line when it comes to FNAF theories of, as you're presenting theory and everything, and delivering a theory, delivering an idea, delivering an opinion. Now, obviously, everyone has their own opinions, everyone has their own theories and everything. But doing a FNAF theory or doing this like crazy idea just as a shock value, just for clickbait, just for views. I'm not saying John clickbaits, but you get what I'm trying to say, is making theories for shock value rather than challenging the timeline and challenging what we as the fans knew at the series, at least at one point. But once again, not throwing shots. Not throwing shots. John's a great FNAF person, FNAF theorist, knows right, all that. Love him and everything. But you get what I'm trying to say. At least I hope. But yeah, once again, not throwing shots. But back to the whole point about the FNAF 4 house and everything. So Edwin's house being connected to the FNAF 4 house. I mean, this is my thing. And this is what I was talking about earlier, of how like challenging the community and challenging us as fans and everything of what is possible, and challenging what we all thought we knew about the series at one point. My mind immediately goes to Midnight Motorist from FNAF 6. Because for the longest time, we've linked the Midnight Motorist house, that the person, Orange Buster Man, driving in the purple car, to be driving up to the FNAF 4 house. It's a lone house in the clearing, surrounded by trees and everything. And it was a house and everything with a like triangle diagonal pattern on the roof and everything. We assumed that to be the FNAF 4 house and Midnight Motorist. So that would then mean, by definition then, Midnight Motorist and Orange Mustard Man, that whole cutscene, as bizarre and as confusing it is, and it is confusing, is then linked to Edwin and his story. So then, who is Orange Mustard Man then? Is it still William Afton? Is it Henry? Is it Edwin at this point? If it is the Edwin household now. And not only that, but ran off at the as you know the Midnight Motors cutscene ends and everything, and talking about, oh, a kid jumps out the window and everything, and Orange Mustard Man is frustrated, saying, oh, he ran off to that place again. He'll be sorry when he gets back. What would that place be then? Does that place now all of a sudden we assumed it to be a Fazbear like pizzeria establishment, maybe Fazbear Family Diner or the FNAF 4 pizzeria? We assumed that's always be what the location was. But ran off to that place again. Is that now Murray's Costume Manor? Just saying the implications of what that all means.
That's where they're sitting in the epilogue of the game. So the idea that in trying to stop Glitchtrap, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's crazy. So the idea that after they escape, in trying to beat Glitchtrap, they go into this abandoned building and find out it's connected to the Pizzaplex isn't that big of a stretch. Especially if Vanessa remembers any of her time as Vanny, this likely would have come up. But that is the second big assumption we need to make here. So, if both of those admittedly large assumptions are true, then we have a group of characters trying to stop Glitchtrap who soon encounter an AI robot whose entire mission statement right now is to delete Glitchtrap so her son can be recreated. So the idea that Vanessa would accept the help of Fiona and they would work together to thwart Glitchtrap makes a lot of sense. And if so, wouldn't the most advantageous position for Vanessa to be in would be the man on the inside, appearing to still be Vanny. Maybe Vanny was destroyed when Princess Quest 3 was beaten, but as Glitchtrap's gathering his information, he sees Vanny re-enter the program, almost like she was not deleted. But in actuality, it's Vanessa pretending to still be the loyal follower in order to wait until Glitchtrap is at his most exposed and vulnerable to pluck him out of the code and crush him. I think that makes a lot of sense. So the TLDW is that Help Wanted 2 is showing us one of the possible turning points into this ongoing feud. Fiona and Vanessa working together to pull away one of Glitchtrap's next victims, just enough to leave Glitchtrap exposed so they could destroy him, but it didn't work. I still think the canon ending to Help Wanted 2 is the main one. After all, it's the one that leads directly into Ruin. So then what is this ending telling us? Well, it might just be telling us how Glitchtrap could be defeated. So when we get to the next game featuring him, we know what to do. But let me know what you think, because this one...
The next game featuring Glitchtrap. I'm honestly, if I'm being honest, if we do get another game featuring Glitchtrap, if he does appear and everything, I don't hate it. I would say I just hope the number one thing I hope for when it comes to having Glitchtrap in another game is setting the record straight of him being a mimic or not. Is he M2 at this point? Where is that Glitchtrap M2 mimic stuff stand at this point and everything? I would say that's the one thing that I would say I hope for if Glitchtrap does indeed appear. But hope you guys enjoyed this FNAF theory reaction video. Were we wrong about Help Wanted 2? I don't know. I feel like I have to dwell on that. Very similar to like stuff I, said throughout the video and everything. Just the implications of, I feel like I have to think about a little bit more of Midnight Motorist and Edwin. Maybe I have to go back to that Midnight Motorist cutscene and think about it again with Edwin in mind. Especially because this whole new thing now of Old Man Consequences now being linked to possibly Edwin, it now makes you question, are there any other cutscenes throughout the series where we thought it to be Henry? What if we replay them again in Edwin's context? Does that change anything? So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know what you agree or disagree with, and if you also have been wrong about FNAF VR Help 1 and 2 since the very beginning. Curious to know your thoughts.